Welcome to Sunflower Movement. I'm your host, Ashley Buckner. Quick disclaimer before we get started. This podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. This platform is not a form of psychotherapy, counseling, or healthcare of any kind. Sunflowers bloom in the most unexpected places, always adjusting to stay connected to the sun. I see these sunflower movements as the moments, people, and places where we feel seen, heard, and believed, where healing takes root and transformation begins. If you're seeking that kind of space, you're in the right place. I'm all about being low maintenance to be a high maintenance girly, and my heatless curler from Cozy Confidence makes it so easy. I've tried satin curlers before, but they always made my curls too tight. I love the texture of this one. It gives my hair extra body without feeling overdone. I just sleep in it overnight, brush it out in the morning, add some dry shampoo at the roots if needed, and a little oil on the ends for shine. It makes my morning routine so much easier. If you want to simplify your getting ready routine, Cozy Confidence has you covered. Use my code AshleyB at cozyconfidence.com for 10% off anytime. Your hair will thank you. If you've ever dealt with sore muscles, tension, or just need a moment to reset, you need to try Pranamat. I won't lie, it's a little spendy, but I use mine every single day and it's 100% worth it. Whether I'm winding down, releasing tension, or even working on muscle tone, it makes a huge difference. I lay on it in so many different positions and every time I feel the impact. If you've been thinking about it, now's the time to try it. Use my code AshleyB for 10% off at pranamat.com. Your body will thank you. I've been using this supplement for the past year and I'm not stopping anytime soon. Let's talk about Armra colostrum. I love it for the immune-boosting benefits, workout recovery, and even the strength it's given to my hair. It's become a staple in my routine, and I can genuinely feel the difference. If you're looking for an easy way to support your body from the inside out, this is it. Head to tryarmra.com/AshleyBuckner and use code AshleyBuckner for 15% off. Give it a try. You'll see why I'm hooked. All right, welcome back, everyone. I am here with my friend, Mellissa Perry Hill. She's a licensed professional counselor. She has been on my podcast before. Actually, I was going to tell you this, Melissa. Your episode is like one of the top 3 that has been listened to. So it really resonated with a lot of people. Awesome. She specializes in religious trauma, faith deconstruction, faith reconstruction. We get into her personal story in that first episode, so I'll link it in the show notes for you all to listen to. But welcome, Melissa. I'm so happy you're here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
How's it feel to be back?
It feels good to be back. It feels like my nervous system is a little more like regulated. Podcasts, I think they bring out different things in different people, right? But being invited as a guest, which has been happening more and more, does this thing where I get activated, and it's really, there's not as many situations where I get activated like that. So this morning I did a yoga nidra for like clarity and did some breath work, and here we are.
Oh, I love that so much. I'm with you. The podcast has brought out all types of things in my nervous system that I have not faced in a long time. Anytime I do something new, there's a lot of shame associated with it. Interestingly, like the messing up, because when you do something new, how often do you mess up? You just make mistake after mistake, right? So that's been a journey. I was also thinking too, since you were on my podcast, you launched your own practice.
Oh my God, I did.
So tell us about that a little bit.
Practice.
Oh, your office is so cute. So if you guys aren't watching this on video, you need to.
Oh yeah. It's been going so well. When you wake up and you're like, hold on. My life is here, and how did it get here? And this is wild, and I'm really grateful and also tired, and like, what the hell? That's kind of what the last 6 months have been like, in a really, really good way. I've definitely been reorienting myself to what my life is. But in terms of the business, it's been going really, really better than I could have ever imagined. So,
yeah. I love that so much. I'm so proud of you. I'm really excited. I actually put you in all of my Arizona referrals. I have a referral list that I send out, and it's like Arizona and then you and a couple other people.
Yes, I have definitely given your name to a number of people. I always have Utah people reaching out constantly.
Yeah. Are you you should think about getting licensed here. I know how we talked about that. It's so easy.
Yes. I've heard it's way too easy to get licensed in Utah.
It's scary. It's scary.
Maybe why we have seen the Jody Hildebrands of the world. there. But anywho, yeah, I'm interested in it. I think right now just everything is basically this year is very full already, so I'm hesitant to add any more states. Although the counseling compact coming out this year is something I'm really interested in, and that covers like 20 something states, I think, of which I'm pretty sure Utah is one, but I'm not positive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I know I'm busy. I'm busy too. I feel you. It's so hard to decide what are you going to bite off, what are
Yep.
you going to take on, what are you not. So,
Yeah.
yeah. How are you? It's been a minute since we've like sat and connected. How are you doing?
I'm really good. I'm really good. Like really good. I think life is life is not easy. Life is not simple, but it's like so rich.
Yeah.
So,
How has your space been? How is your like like you have your platform and you talk a lot about religious trauma. You talk a lot about the impact of high control religion. I mean specifically Mormonism, but high control religion in
yeah.
general. How has all of that been for you?
It continues to like show me over and over and validate how much of a need there is.
Oh, yeah, I
Because there have
feel
been
that.
times where I get tired, right, of talking about the same things, taking more trainings and digging deeper into this stuff. And there are times where I'm like, maybe I just want to lean into somatics, just like I'll just be a somatic, like whatever it might be. And then something calls me kind of back. Like there are so many people hurting from this level of manipulative control on such like a psychological level, such a
I
deeply
do.
existential, eternal perspective level that makes people essentially want to die. And I feel like there's so much value in me taking a breath, resting, and then continuing the work. And that's what I'm seeing. More of what I need to do is just take a break, rest, and then continue
Yeah,
instead of stopping altogether.
yeah, I feel that. I feel that a lot. I actually, the more clients I take on, and now that my focus is primarily like this Mormon religious trauma piece, right? Especially here in Utah, and the more I work with the nervous system, and it's truly astounding, and it's heartbreaking, and it's like I wish it could be this normalized thing that we talked about, and that you could talk about it without pushback, that you could talk about it without threats and attacks, right?
Yeah.
And so then there's this element of lonely to it too. Like I feel lonely. And so I've been really trying to be super intentional about connecting with people that are in this field doing this work, and not necessarily related to even just the church, but I've just been more mindful of like those type of connections for people that get it, because not a lot of people get this, especially this space. I mean, I've had other therapists, like I had a therapist send me a DM, and she was like, I get so anxious when I like respond to hate. I'm like, oh girl, like welcome to my comment section. Like that's that's not all that it is, right? But there's so much of that.
So much. So much. And I don't think people understand what that feels like and the way that it affects us. And we really are just human beings at the end of the day. We're also making a choice to put ourselves out there, and that's one that I think we have to continuously reevaluate, because ultimately, like my care for myself, and hopefully Ashley, like your care for yourself, it absolutely is prioritized above my work, my social media. And so as long as I'm taking care of that as a foundation, and that does mean connections with people who understand, at least they can try to conceptualize what it might feel like, and that they take some of their time and some of their energy to put themselves there a little bit to be able to join us, because it is very lonely and it's a very unique niche, and it's one with power, greed, and almost $300 billion behind it.
Oh gosh.
What are we gonna do, right? Like you and me, like it's hard.
It's so hard, and it's actually really interesting too. And we were kind of texting a little bit last week. So or like 2 weeks ago, I don't even remember. if you feel comfortable, you can share whatever you want here. But I was texting with you, and I was getting attacked on Google. So these young men, a whole group of them, they were all connected to the same company, went and found my Google page to leave me 1-star reviews, and like just went off on me. And I was like, what the hell is happening? You know? And I got most of the reviews taken down. But then you and I were texting, and I was like, you know what? I need to call my lawyer. Like, I need to call a lawyer, because I don't know, like, they're threatening my license. Do I need to be worried? You know? And so I called my lawyer, and he's actually a great LDS man, which is,
Awesome.
you know,
Great,
and
yeah.
he said, you're fine. He's like, as far as Google goes, there's nothing you can do but report. But he's like, there's no way they can, like, you're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. And he said, however, with that being said, if you feel really scared or threatened, we'll do something, you know? And I was like, and that kind of felt, I was like, okay, like I have something, right?
Yep.
But it's all still a little bit scary. And I don't even think they'll take my, I'm not worried about my license to practice, but my religious trauma shows up with those intrusive thoughts because of this $1 billion organization. Like, what are they going to do to me? You know?
Yep. Same here. And then when people take action to try to bring you down, which is essentially what happened. And I'm so glad that you called your lawyer, because you need that, right? You need evidence that, like, I'm not alone in this. Like, I've done document that shit, save every file. Because you've put skin in the game. I've put skin in the game. We've both received backlash. And that's going to continue to happen as long as you want to be doing this work. And it's difficult to understand what that feels like, especially when you were raised in a system that tells you that if you, I'm remembering, like, the devil in the temple.
Yep.
I don't know if you went to the temple.
I didn't, but keep
there's
going.
this part in the temple covenant that you're making where the devil looks you in the eye and he says, any of you who break these covenants this day will be in my power. And, like, he says it, like, in a scary way. And people are sitting in the Gilbert Temple right now making a covenant that, okay, whatever the church says, I will do, because I don't want to be in the devil's power. We were raised with that. That doesn't start when you enter the temple, right? We were raised with that. And so then when this group of guys are attacking your business profile, or when someone makes a horrendous false allegation about me to try to take down my license, those parts are going to come up.
Oh my gosh, they come up so strong. That's when my religious trauma, like, really revs up, because I never went through the temple, but I distinctly remember, like, this collective energy of, you do not say bad things about this church. You do not talk about anything icky that you might feel. If you choose to deny the truth, you are committing the ultimate sin, right?
Ultimate sin that will put you in outer darkness. The one where you see God and you turn away because you were 8 and you ended up getting baptized, and that means that now you qualify for hell.
Yes, exactly. And now how that shows up is, like, it's not the outer darkness that I'm scared of. I'm scared of this organization that has so much money and power coming after me. That's what I'm scared of.
Yeah, and that's real. I mean, that is real.
It is, and it's. Anyways, we could go into that. I mean, but to what you shared, like, people are making false allegations about someone who is just talking honestly and openly about the impact this religion has on mental health, and to have a false allegation made, just, to me, again, further highlights the red flags of this organization. And yes, they're probably not affiliated with the leadership or whatever, but it's still that energetically, that is how the collective a lot of times responds. And it comes from this culture of, don't believe non-believers. You can't leave the church. You can't question it. It's just all, like, it's all so shitty. Anyways.
It's also doctrinally a violent culture. It's doctrinally a very violent culture, right? Like, what did King Laban he needed his head chopped off. And Noah the righteous, or Nephi, you can see that I have not, let me tell you, I read the Book of Mormon 9 times in my life, but I haven't touched it for like 8 years, and it shows. Anywho, Nephi needed to go chop his head off, and he was celebrated. It was the thing to do. It's better for one man to die than all the people that one man would bring down. And that's my religious trauma. That comes up because that stuff was beat into my heart and soul. And so, yeah, like, I'm not even gonna lie, security, lawyers, a legal team, like, when I say security, I mean like a security system, like, not like a big deal, but I've definitely shifted I'm shifting the way that I exist in the world, because it is scary and it does affect the everyday life that we live. It
does. And I think unconsciously too, and I've tried to be more cognizant of that. Like, I've really tried not to read my comments.
Love that. Good idea.
It's hard. It's like it's a double-edged sword for me, because the comments really help me raise so much awareness, because they genuinely highlight how pervasive all of this is. And so it's like this delicate dance of, what do I read, what do I not read, you know? Right. And I'm constantly trying to figure it out. And I don't know, I think I shared this with you when all of that stuff was going down, but I just was like, it does 2 things for me. When I'm in the moment and I'm upset, it makes me, one, want to quit. Like, I want to quit. And then on the completely other side of the spectrum, it fuels my fire. Like, it makes me so angry, and it's like, this is why the harm and trauma is what it is, because this is what happens when you speak up, you know? So it's just like this, both sides. And that's what my lawyer said. He's like, don't quit. Like, I don't want you to quit. And it was, I don't know, like, you do need those things. Like, and as I'm like saying this to you, it's also fucking crazy that I have to call my lawyer because of the thing that I specialize in for therapy. I don't have to call my lawyer if I specialize in depression or anxiety.
Girl, I felt this so deeply. I felt this deeply with the allegation that was made against me, except for it was about, like, existing in my body as a woman, because the allegation that was made about me was super sexual. And so it brought me to this space of, like, if I only had a penis and was 6 foot tall, this would not be happening. And that makes me want to vomit. Like, it is not okay. Not okay. You know?
It is. No, it's not. It's absolutely not okay. And it's actually really interesting that you bring this up, because I've had I did, like, one of my high school ex-boyfriends came on my podcast, and I love him. He's so great. And I released a couple of his clips. No negativity. No hate. Not one single comment.
The first one, probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, and, like, it didn't go super viral or anything like that, but it was just so fascinating.
Well, it didn't go super viral because it wasn't controversial. And 2 women sitting there holding their power, talking about difficult things, is going to go viral.
Yeah, it's controversial.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, we could go on and on and on about this, but I you know, like, what I just, like, really appreciate is, thank you for getting it. Thank you for holding space and validating me and just, like, making me feel less alone, because it is lonely at times, like, lonely and hard. And it's also so real. Like, I was at a brain spotting training, and no one from Utah was there, but there was a lot of trainers from Idaho, actually. And they have nothing to do with the church, and they're like, oh my gosh, can you tell us all about it, because we have so many clients that are leaving and they're really struggling. And it's so real. It's so vast.
It's so real. It's so real. Yeah, another part of my business is consultation. And so I'm just building the foundation there. That really just started in October. So I'm doing lots of, like, events and, you know, coffee meetups and get-togethers. And that's what I'm hearing from clinicians around this valley is, like, I need to know, like, give me a framework, give me some research, give me some theories, like, help me understand what's happening here, because I don't know how to handle this, and it's coming in my office every single day.
I'm just really just having such a moment about this, because how many times do we have to have this, like, how many times do I have to have this conversation? Like, the impact the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints has on mental health is significant. And anywhere where the culture dominates, it is significant. And the only way to treat mental health in any culture, is to talk about it, right? Mm-hmm. You have to understand how the culture in which your client is the most actively participating in has impacted their mental health. But it's like, if you say that in Utah or Arizona or Idaho, in these, predominant LDS spaces, it's like you have dropped the biggest bomb ever, and I can't wrap my head around it, and I don't know what to do, and I feel like a broken record, but I just can't wrap my head around that we can't talk about this.
Yeah. I think that it really is relatively, well, the whole thing is new, right? Mormonism is a new religion. It is a new capitalist, money-making religion. But also us talking about it like this is new, because if you think about like the internet, right? Like, I was sitting in junior high when I first really got into the internet. Like, it's new. We're seeing how small of a population the LDS religion really is, I guess, and people are on TikTok, they're learning so much every day, and suddenly this all-encompassing high control structure is being questioned more than ever, and that's really only happened in the last 10-20 years. And so you and me are going to be having this conversation over and over and over, because that structure is meant to be very difficult to leave. It is meant to keep you in psychological chains of obedience. And that's not even sugar-coated. That is literally be obedient or you go to hell. That's...
Yeah. And what's coming up for me as you're saying this, which thank you for saying this, sometimes I need to be brought back to earth, this is why this is happening. What's coming up for me is exactly what we were already talking about. We were programmed and conditioned to not ever leave the church, right?
Yeah.
And so then, of course, it's so hard to talk about. I mean, it was so hard for me to get to a place, and I had been out for over a decade when I finally was like, this shit's crazy.
Yeah, one of the questions was is it really supposed to be this hard? Why? It's been years and I can't seem to get past this. And I was writing down my notes, thinking this through. I'm it is exactly supposed to be that hard. Because if it's that hard, at least half of us are not going anywhere, because we know that it would wreck our lives and even our mental health, because everything turns into a black void, and then you have to build from scratch.
Do you have that submission right there in front of you?
Let me see. Yes, I do.
I want you to read it. Let's do that one first. We're jumping into submissions, guys, because Mellissa just segued us there. So I asked everyone, do you have any questions about untangling religious beliefs, rebuilding after faith shifts, or navigating the emotional toll of it all? And I got some really solid submissions, and we're going to jump into them right now.
Okay. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, you read it.
Okay. I've watched as so many people have gone from TBM to out of the church in a matter of months. I've watched people start their faith transition way after mine, and they are so much farther in their acceptance of it than I am. I've been knee-deep in this for years, and it all just seems impossible. I'm so frustrated by my inability to move on. Am I missing something obvious? Is it really supposed to be this hard? And the thing that came to me is it's supposed to be this hard, because that's how we know it's a high control structure. It's built to be that hard. And I'm so sorry. It's also really brought up for me, just understanding that for some human beings who go through a really, really huge loss, it can turn into complex and more complex and prolonged grief, right? And for others, they can kind of not experience it that way. Some of us, it'll throw us into full-on an adjustment disorder. These clinically significant situations where, let me go sit with a therapist who understands religious trauma, and it's totally going to be worth it when it's been a few years or more, and it's still really eating you up. It's totally worth it to do that.
Absolutely. And I think what comes up for me when I read this submission is just how we all process things differently and how distressing comparison can be. And unfortunately, we live in this world, this comparison game where like, well, she's moving it through it faster than me. And I really invite this person to just hold space for what's true and real for you. I was actually having this conversation with a client yesterday that we can't force ourselves to get somewhere with something. We can't like we can't get to a place where we appreciate our trauma if we haven't dealt with how much we fucking hate our trauma, right? And so you have to really hold space for what is coming up. And I would say if you feel pretty stuck in it, I think it's time to maybe consider working with a therapist, right? Or doing some inner work to get some movement around it, because it's stuck for a reason, and it's probably stuck in an adaptive way, like it's just trying to keep you safe. This is a lot to deconstruct, and it's a lot to reconcile, and your nervous system probably feels really scared to do so for all the reasons we've already talked about today.
Yeah, another thing I really want this person to hear is that I know that he or she feels so alone. I can hear it.
Oh, yeah.
And with the comparison game, with social media, I just want to validate for you that you're so not alone, because even the people who are going to step out and say, I left the church and it was easy, no biggie, like I'm living my best life, it's all good. I promise you, although there's variation in how we're going to grieve this loss and rebuild, it's not that easy. It's not. And I want to join you right now. When did I leave? I left the church in like 2019. And, Ashley and I both, we're sitting here talking about our religious trauma coming up, like in present day.
And that's what I was going to say. I left in 2012. And when I was living my best life for a very long time. And then I moved back to Utah, and it was like, whoosh, all the shit you've never dealt with, Ash, is glaring its like head, And I'm telling you right now, it comes up still to this day. I get scared. The churches come do some crazy shit to me, right? Like that's rooted in religious trauma. This is heavy work, and oftentimes it's lifelong, especially if you were born into it. If you have ancestors that were part of this religion, it's so deep. And I love that you bring up the alone piece and just really inviting that person to know they're not alone, and we are with you. We see you. I want to reread the submission too, because I don't know if it kind of cut out because of connection. I've watched as so many people have gone from TBM, true believing Mormon, to out of the church in a matter of months. I've watched people start their faith transition way after mine, and they are so much farther in their acceptance of that than I am. I've been knee deep in this for years, and it all just seems impossible. I'm so frustrated by my ability to move on. Am I missing something obvious? Is it really supposed to be this hard? Oh, I'm glad I kind of read it again. I just invite you to hold space for that frustration. That is so true and real. And if that's where you start this journey, that's powerful.
Yeah, I also want to give them kudos, because I feel like they're the one who's willing to say that. They're the one who's willing to say that first to themselves, and then to maybe ask to get some help. Because I love my clients. I love my work, and sometimes I sit with people who have been letting their trauma kind of affect their lives negatively for 40 years,
Absolutely.
And this person is just owning it. She's like, I'm not okay.
And that's the hardest, most important step, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for that submission. I'll read the next one.
Okay.
I know I can't control how my family views me as I've stepped away from the church. But does it ever hurt less? The judgment, the gossiping, them coming up with reasons for why I was deceived without ever talking to me. It's so hurtful to have people who are supposed to love you or know you the best so fundamentally misunderstand and not make an effort to understand. Whew, that one just makes me emotional.
Yeah. Acceptance, accepting. There's a lot of a need for acceptance in this.
Yeah. And I don't have this personal experience related to the church at all. However, I will say that I feel very misunderstood by my family and always have. And I grew up in a very enmeshed family where everyone talks shit about each other. And I've been really kind of exploring like the mistrust that I have and how hard that is to hold and feel. And I just want to acknowledge that for this person. I don't know if it's ever going to hurt less, but I don't know if it's supposed to not hurt less, because our nervous system is meant to be activated by this so that we can be smart and intentional about how we navigate those relationships.
Right. Like, how do you exist in the relationship moving forward? I'm in a family structure that is like this. Luckily, the majority of us have left the church. I'm from a huge family. But there's like people that I love and care about so deeply who do very deeply misunderstand me and have to have judgments up for them to feel safe. They have to keep these big walls up and judgments up for them to feel safe. And I will say something that's happened for me, and I don't know if it's just me adapting and needing to like be a mom and like live my life, but for me it does hurt less. And I think maybe that's because the way that me and these family members love each other is different now. So like we're not necessarily talking about our dark nights of the soul together. We're not talking about getting through the nitty-gritty together. It's more about the joyful things that we can experience, the lighter things in life, and just them knowing that like I have their back and hoping that they have my back. And I think that you can rebuild something. I do think that that relationship is going to change and maybe never be the same. But I hope that all of my loved ones, and if any of them are listening, because I come from a big family, I hope that they know that like I'm going to pick you up at 3 a.m. if you need me.
Yeah.
I truly am, because I love you and I don't care about these ideologies. That love is there, and I understand that I'm misunderstood, but just know that I understand that, and that's okay. You're allowed to misunderstand me.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful, Melissa, and it to me it highlights just like the depth of your inner work. And I would say, as I dive into my own hurt around this, I have compassion so that I actually don't feel as dysregulated when I am with family, because I see it for what it is. I see why they're showing up the way they are. And I think but I also would be lying if I said it didn't hurt sometimes. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's going to hurt sometimes, for sure. It's going to hurt, and I think for everybody's different.
Yeah, for real.
We're all going to be different. And like, I got invited to a holiday thing this last year where it's like the majority of the people there were going to be like very, very, very religious. Like I knew that religion was going to be part of everything that was done, and I knew I was going to be in the minority, and like, I actually got physically ill before, like I won't lie, like my body, I had like this weird autoimmune thing happen right before, and I was like, I thought I was good, I thought I was okay. So like I said, I think part of it is just me adapting. Not only am I a woman, I'm a single woman, I have 3 children, like I have to keep going, I have to be very strong. And so I think that's part of why it hurts less for me, because it has to.
Yeah.
There are probably some parts that have some big like protective numbing power or something going on. And then my body did express like that stress before. I'm still not like mad that I went. I think it was the right thing personally for me, but I'm not rubbing shoulders with all these people every single day, and we're not getting deep.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. And I think what's also coming up for me too is it ebbs and flows. Like I am right now, I just went to this developmental trauma brain spotting training, and that essentially dredged up all of this shit. And that's what you do in brain spotting training, is you do a lot of your own work. And so I think that's why I'm like, oh, but I see it all for what it is, right? And and I also think that's a window into my own healing, right? So if you're feeling hurt, that's real, and that's also activation, and that's yours to curiously explore and work through, because
Yep.
you can't change mom, dad, brother, sister, grandparents. You're powerless to that, but you have so much power over facing your own stuff. And to me, that is freeing.
It's so beautiful. My therapist helped me recognize that experience was like, what a teacher, right? What a teaching opportunity and a moment for you to really learn from what happened there, and also to be proud of yourself for the way that you showed up. I have a 14-year-old daughter, and she knew that this was coming up, and she could tell that she can read me like a book. It's horrible, but she could tell that I was like kind of freaking out inside, and she's like, Mom, go there and like show your tattoos and smile and give them a big hug and wave a freaking pride flag. She's like,
love it.
Be who you are and smile because you're beautiful. You have nothing to be ashamed of. I was like, okay, this little bundle of wisdom. Like, she's so right. And that's what I ended up doing.
I love
Minus
that.
the pride flag, but
I love that. And you modeled that to her too, right?
yeah, I did. Thank
Super
you.
powerful. Thanks for sharing that. All right, will you read the next submission?
Okay, let's see. Let's go with, I love number 2. How do you reconcile the times you felt the Spirit or received a blessing and felt God in your life through the priesthood or in the temple? I know people are beautiful and God speaks to all of us, but I don't like that I have positive feelings associated with things that are false.
Oof, I read this one too, and I was like, oh, I'm so curious what Mellissa thinks.
Dude, people are so cool. Like, I love what people think about, you know?
Me too. I was like, this is deep and real. That's such a real submission.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's connected to the nervous system. This is nervous system stuff. This is like, I was safe when I felt the Spirit, and now I don't know how to feel the Spirit and be safe anymore.
Yeah, and what comes up for me when I initially read this and they felt the Spirit, I genuinely believe that's a manifestation of the nervous system. Like, it's going to bring that up to help you navigate the high control nature of the religion, right? It's protective. It's adaptive. If you're being told this is how you feel the Spirit, this is how you get confirmation, right? It's like your nervous system's gonna take care of you. I don't know.
Really that's like that perspective.
That's what comes up for me a lot when I have clients that have shared that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've heard, it's been so interesting, especially hearing from men about the way that feeling the Spirit kind of manifests in different people. And one of the things I've seen more is that, like, in men, there's maybe more of a level of like fear. It's like intoxicating to like be on the edge of fear and want so badly to be good. And there's something that really, heightens the nervous system in that sympathetic state. And then if you can find the defined, prescription for what's going to put you into the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest. And if they say like, yeah, like, did you read your scriptures tonight? Like, did you read your scriptures? And did you, right? Are you wearing your white shirt and tie? And did you go every Sunday? And like those things do, because you're being taught when to feel safe and when not to feel safe.
Oof.
Yeah.
That line, you're being taught when to feel safe and when not to feel safe. One thing I've been really, really thinking about is that high control religion creates the trauma, but it also creates the remedy.
Absolutely. Oh my God. It's so true, especially when you hear the stories, right? The stories that are exaggerated. I mean, throughout all of church history, you will find stories that have been exaggerated. Miracle stories, right? They're so scary, and like there's evil and bad things, and then the hero comes in, and then the priesthood holder, and then they decided to get baptized, and then they came back, and they became a righteous member of the church and became temple endowed, and all was well. And we hear these stories at age 3, for, what does it do? You know?
Yep.
Even in the way that, even in like the dialect of Mormonism, right? Like the tone, the way that we speak, it's very interesting.
It is very interesting and so incredibly real.
Yeah.
And
I love that take
go
from
ahead.
you on the I love that take from you on the nervous system. I kind of went a little bit of a different way with it, so it's really interesting to hear yours.
Yeah, that's when I read a sentence, but I don't like that I have positive feelings associated with things that are false. I I get that. I totally hold space for that. I would invite this person to notice that. And I also think, of course you do. Your nervous system was working so hard to take care of you in a high distress situation. That is unconsciously just distressful, right? You know, and especially as a child, you just don't have the ability to understand the messages that are being told to you. And so you internalize them, and your body has to find a way to survive it. And our bodies are masterful. Our nervous system is so incredibly capable of taking care of us.
Yeah. The stories you're being told when your brain is in the most impactful stages of development are, you can be together forever with your family if only you choose this one and only path that will dictate the rest of your whole life. So when you make a decision to do that and everyone's celebrating you, that's very early on for your brain to say, this is what's right and this is what's wrong. So I just love the nervous system aspect. That's beautiful. I went a little more woo-woo because in terms
Give
of
me
like,
the woo-woo. I'm here for the woo-woo.
in terms of like Reconstruction, I think just the part of your brain that kind of lights up when we're experiencing the mystical. That happens to every human being throughout all of humankind, in every culture and on the whole planet. We all feel the spirit. We all feel the spirit. It's a psychological thing that happens in our brain. And so what's worked for me is looking back at those experiences, and there's a lot of them that I still feel very connected to, because that was me being the amazing human animal that I am, experiencing something bigger than myself. Hope, imagination, beauty, connection to a higher power, to the universe, to like this mother, this earth that we're part of. Like, it's so beautiful. And I feel that there are times where that was happening. I just existed within this structure. And I do, when I look back, like, look where I am now, look where you are now. I do think that I was connected to something bigger and beautiful that was more wise and knowledgeable than I am. And so for me, that just feels like the universe, this whole plan that you and I are a part of, and that's part of it. And then I have these other experiences where I think more about my nervous system, more about what was my body going through at that time. Like postpartum, I had a lot of spiritual experiences postpartum. And let's just say I wasn't well. My anxiety was really out of control while I was having my children, which was like an extended period of time. And I had some experiences that I took as spiritual experiences, and I look back and that was like psychological terror and upheaval in my body, not getting my needs met, not being cared for as a new mother, not having the help and support that I needed. I was expected to just be able to do that. And so it's a mix. Some experiences I'm like, wow, that was like a beautiful message from the universe that still counts for me. And then other experiences, I recognize it was a concoction of fear, of developmental factors, psychological, physiological factors, what I had been taught and conditioned to believe, all of that.
Absolutely. I think I really love what you're sharing here too, is like it's both and.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's also complex and hard, right? And I'm gonna say to this person, kind of to what you're speaking to, Mellissa, there might have been times where you genuinely felt that spiritual experience, right? And that's what makes this so difficult to deconstruct. It would be so much easier if it was just all bad, if it was just all bullshit, right? But it's not. And really there's not much in life that is.
It's the gray area.
So
There really
great.
isn't. There isn't much in life that is completely black or white.
And I think one way I've really seen this in the reconstruction phase too is when I do brain spotting sessions with clients and we work through like they work through some pretty heavy, they do some deep work and they get to the other side of it. I've had a couple clients say, I imagine this is what the spirit was always supposed to feel like. And it is so incredibly beautiful because it's all from within their own being. And that's what I would invite this person to lean into is like, can you feel that from within? Like, are there things in your life, experiences, situations, moments that generate like a felt sense of clarity, knowing, peace, right? And building a connection with those things kind of can be really powerful.
When I look back at like source energy for me, it's an IFS term, internal family systems term, but source energy is like the most grounded version of me, that energy. And I had like, I remember one priesthood blessing that I had, and I was totally in self and source energy, and it was like a really cool blessing. I don't know why it was, but I look back at that experience and I'm like, no, like I was gaining increased autonomy. I was connected to myself, and I heard in that experience what I needed to hear, and that's beautiful, and that counts today. Like that's but I was connected to myself. I was connected to source. And the times where there was a high level of like fear and those experiences that will just kind of push you into a corner and say, never leave this church. This is the one and only true church. Never step out of line. That feeling of the spirit is like, that's not from you. That's a level of that high control. And although your nervous system was feeling something, right? You were going through something, right? Maybe you were sweating, maybe your heart was pounding, maybe you were like, who knows what was going on in your body, but that wasn't from that most internal true source of who you are. That wasn't from grounded energy. So
yeah, I think that's really, really powerful to distinguish between those two things. Okay, we'll go to the next one. I feel like we could just go on and on and on.
I know.
Okay. I loved that submission too.
It was good.
Okay. Oh, how in the world, all caps, do I make friends? All my life, my friends were determined by my Sunday school age group in my ward, no matter where we moved. But now I want to make friends outside the church, but I feel so distant from them. I see you. That's what I want to say. I think that's been the hardest part for me in moving back to small town Utah is making friends, which I've talked about a lot on this podcast. I learned how to make friends in a different culture outside of Utah, and that was transformative for me. And so the hard part has been coming back to Utah and having everyone already be part of a group.
So Ash, how did you begin? Like, how did you leave Utah and then begin to just like show yourself in a different way and like experience all these new things and still show up authentically? Like, how did that go? Maybe that would be helpful for this submission.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I will say, so it's interesting. I guess I'm like, okay, you're like dropping me in. When I left Utah and I moved to California, I did not know how to make friends, exactly like the submission. I had no fucking clue because I never had to. And it wasn't so much that all my friends were church related, but I lived in small town Utah and everybody knew everyone. You already knew about every person. You knew their family, you knew their history. So like, it was just easy to be friends essentially. Right? And I never really had to learn how to be like, hi, my name's Ashley. This is where I'm from. This is what I do. Like, no, especially in Cedar City, no one introduces themselves. Like, if I go to someone's house and I don't know people, no one introduces themselves. It's such a weird thing. And I never noticed it until I moved back. So, like, when I moved to college, I didn't know. And my brother, my youngest brother, who also moved away for school, he had the exact same experience. Like, he didn't know how to make friends either. And it took me a lot of time. But fortunately, my college roommate, we had a mutual friend, and so we decided to be roommates together. and she's still my very best friend to this day. I love her so much. And she genuinely just loved me unconditionally. She didn't give a fuck about anything. That she didn't care where I was from. She didn't care that I was raised Mormon. She didn't care about anything. And it was the first time I had ever experienced anything like that. Because when you grow up in small town Utah and a predominant religious community, everybody has an opinion or a judgment, right? Like it's not unconditional love. It's really not. Or unconditional. I don't know if like, I'm not saying all of our friends have to, like, people have to love us, but like, there's just, everything is conditional, or it feels very conditional.
Yeah.
And so I think that helped me make friends, and put myself out there. And I am a very outgoing person. It's interesting because I felt very insecure in college. Like I felt super insecure internally, and I struggled a lot with my own mental health. But as I've done a lot of healing, I look back at my core group of friends, and it was small. So like I didn't join a sorority. That was too overwhelming. I didn't want to have like a big group. I had to start really small. But they are still some of my very best friends to this day. And it's because they loved me for me. And that helped me be authentic. But I will say it was very hard.
Yeah, I mean, and you're giving them a lot of credit. I know that they're wonderful people, and you met wonderful people, but also you were brave.
I was. You're right. I was brave, and I just allowed myself to be me, I think, for the very first time in my whole life. And I was very messy. I just would describe myself as very, and I don't mean like I'm a very organized person, but I was very messy emotionally, mentally. Like I would drink too much. I was hooking up with boys. Like, I mean, I was so complex at that age.
You were trying to figure out who you were.
Oh my gosh, it was the first time in my life. And so, yeah, I think having good friends, but also just, I think allowing myself to be me, to be honest, like, and that's hard. It's very hard to do. But now that we're talking about it and I'm really reflecting on it, allowing myself to be me, like all of that messiness, it also showed me who my people were.
Yep. Yeah. That's exactly how I responded to this. It just, like, it's a great filter. There are amazing people who have not rubbed shoulders with Mormonism at all, who are going to be some of the best friends you've ever had. And the ones who judge that maybe you've only had sex with one person your whole life, or you've never watched a rated R movie, or like some of the stuff, right? Like, they're not your people. And also, ew, gross. How judgy, right?
Yep. Oh, I love that. I mean, and that's the truth. Like, I made a lot of friends of college. I'm not close with some of them. And they weren't Mormon, but they just weren't my people, right? They were, even in graduate school, I had some friends that I was like kind of friends with. And then it turned out they were kind of mean girls and we're not friends anymore. And that's okay.
Yep. Yeah, I actually made this reel that did pretty well. It was funny. It was like waking up and recognizing that you feel like a 15-year-old when you leave high control religion, because developmentally, like, there are some things that you just kind of miss. Like, for sure, sexuality. My brain always goes to that. Like, we definitely are very underdeveloped in that way. Just our relationship with ourselves, our bodies, but also socially. Also, like, how do I connect with this woman when we're not planning the Relief Society thing? Or we're not talking about how we exist as mothers, like, only, like, you know, and so I just feel like it's something that you have to kind of just do it. You gotta just like get in there and do it, but you might and just own it. Just be like, well, you know, I'm a person who, I don't usually talk about stuff like this with girlfriends. Like, usually we talk about the next activity coming up, or like, this is a little uncomfortable for me, but I'm really curious. Like, let's continue to talk about this.
Absolutely. I love all of that. I love that you're sharing all of that too, because it's so real. It is like, and I think it's going to be really uncomfortable. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable.
I think think it's gonna be like you're right. Like I'm like thinking about like you're 15 and you're gonna be like having you're not 15, right? But you feel socially 15, and you're gonna be having conversations that you've never had before, and all of that, and it's gonna be super uncomfortable. It's hard for me to fully feel that discomfort right now because I did it so long ago, right?
It still comes up for me. I have to tell you the funniest story. I'm dating this guy right now. And we were talking the other night just about like life and different things, like broken bones, I don't know, stuff like that. And he's like, "Did you grow up like in a bubble? Like were you actually in a bubble?" And I was like, "Kind of, yes. I was. I was very busy, right? But I was very busy within this one structure. And so there's like so much in life that I just never touched. I never touched it. And I'm doing a lot of that in my 30s, which is why I think my 30s has been just like the best decade ever. But it still comes up for me. Absolutely. There are moments where I'm just like, yeah, I'm special. Leave me alone.
Did you grow up
and I think the best way to just own it and laugh. And if you want to try something, do it and be bad at it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Try something and it's okay if you're bad at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, Mellissa, will you do the next submission for us?
Okay. Let's see. Which one do we want to do? Do you have one that's standing out to you? How about number 1? Let's do that. I am the only one in my friend group who left the church. I was confronted this week because of a TikTok I posted making fun of the new garment situation. They said I was not being a good friend or respecting them because of my attitude toward the church and, I quote, telling shitty things and misleading people. I should leave it alone. I never asked them to change their position on the church or stop being vocal about it. But now she is saying that the only way for me to be a good friend is to stay quiet. I don't agree, but I would like to know your take. How can I stay true to my values and still respect people?
What's coming up for me, when I read that, I love that submission, by the way. Thank you for submitting it. It's so real. Sounds to me like your friend is pretty activated by the things that you're saying, and that is on her, not you. And you are allowed to share what you feel and what your experience is. And I have found that the people that are the most distressed by that are the people that have the most to reconcile within their own being. Because if your friend is truly so solid and good with her religious beliefs, it doesn't matter what you say.
Mm-hmm. Then she doesn't need to shove you back into a closet and put a sock in your mouth.
Exactly.
Which is what she tried to do. And fuck that. You do you. This reminds me of when I was first shifting out of the church. I think it was, oh my gosh, what was it? There was something going on and I can't remember what it was, but I posted about a current event on like my personal Instagram, and one of my friend's husbands DMs me. Not my friend's husband, one of my best friends too. This was so hard. Like my heart, I can feel the activation right here as I talk about it. He reached out and he was like so mad, just anger coming toward me. He's like, "You think you're the only one who has experienced doubts? Do you think you're the only one who has gone through a faith crisis? Like, how dare you put this on your social media and you hurt people by saying that you disagree with the prophet's stance on," it was like racism, and it was like the priesthood, and he was like, "How dare you?" And that was the end of that friendship too. I was like, "Hey, like, I love you. I love your wife. I understand that we don't see eye to eye on this, but I'm not going to not say what I think. Like, you're welcome to unfollow me." And that was it. And that's the thing, like, relationships do change, and sometimes when you're aligned with your values and the things that are important to you, and as a white woman, I feel the need to speak out about things that happen to people of color, especially in the intersection of my work in religious trauma. It's my job. It's my job. It's not their job. It's fucking my job. Because they don't need to do that work. They have labored enough, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I'm going to do it. And that's part of my values. That's part of my work. And so that friendship fell off, which was so sad. And I had to grieve it. And I can feel it coming up right now because I love her so much. But it just changed.
Absolutely.
That's okay. And I think it's good because we both are living in ways that feel true to us.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. It's incredibly real. I mean, I think about this all the time because people will come at me and they'll be like, well, therapists aren't perfect. Therapists cause harm. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, I'm not distressed by that. I'm not activated by that sentence because I know that therapists can and do cause harm. I am comfortable saying that out loud. I also know that religious trauma and Mormon religious trauma is real. And you're not going to shake me on that. You're not, right? Like, and that's what this comes to is like, for all of the hate and the attack that I get, that doesn't change for me. I don't go find Mormons' pages and be like, this Mormon religious trauma is real, like you're spewing, because I don't care, quite frankly.
Right.
It doesn't, if you are happy and content in your religion, I might not agree with the things that you're saying and doing, but guess what? I'm just going to keep on scrolling because that's how you respect people, in my opinion, because she's asking that question. How do I stay true to my values and how do I still respect people? You just keep on fucking scrolling. That's what you do. Mm-hmm. Right?
Mm-hmm. I will let you be who you are, and I want you to be who you are. I want you to be happy. But you got to do the same for me. Like, in this friendship, in this relationship, there needs to be influence on both sides, right? Like, I have something to say. I have something that I care about. And if this is a real friendship, you're going to be okay with the space that I take up in the room. Oof. And if you're not, bye.
Exactly. Bye. Exactly. And I think that's a fine line to draw in the sand. And this is not about you. That's like the person that, like, this is not about you or your TikTok. This is about her and her inability to hold space for you. Mm-hmm. And that's not your responsibility to fix.
Exactly. This is a her thing.
Yep.
She's uncomfortable. She's so uncomfortable that she didn't know what to do with it. She knew that something needed to happen, and unfortunately, she went external instead of going internal. Like, oh my god, like,
yep,
it's activating something, right? But
absolutely.
she solved the problem with her manager parts by going to you and trying to control what you do.
Absolutely. Okay, we're gonna keep going. I still have 30 minutes. I moved my 12:30, FYI. Okay. So we're going to keep going. We're going to keep rolling with these. I really liked this one too. How do you convey to never members the intensity of the trauma without fully reliving the entire thing every time? I wish Melissa's face right now.
I feel like this is like my life. Oh my god.
It's so real. What comes up for you? Where are you at with that?
Two things. I mean, I'm just thinking about me and one of my closest friends, Callie Probst. I don't know if you've heard of her, but Callie Finding Joy. She's
yeah. I love her.
She's one of my besties. Yeah, her and I will get together with like our group of friends. There's like 3 or 4 other people, never been Mormon, right? And somehow the conversation goes back, and we're like talking about but this is why, because in Mormonism this is what happens, and my friends are just like, oh my gosh, like, what did you just say? What? And then her and I will like laugh and be like, okay, we can't make this conversation all about Mormon stuff. But our friends, it's funny, I was just talking to my other friend this morning about this question, and she's like, girl, like, I love being there for you. I love seeing you're messy. I love when you are able to be real with us, when you and Callie are able to just like let it be exactly what it is. Like, I like hearing it because you're letting me in, you know? And I think that those are your people. Also, let them kind of lead the way. Like, For example, let them ask the questions. You don't have to dump. You don't have to. And if you feel like you need to dump, you need to be doing some journaling, some somatic work, some therapy, because it's oozing out of you. So if you feel like you're at the oozing point, go get some help. But if you feel like you just want to share because they asked a question and it's connected to this thing, maybe let them ask the question, decide if it's safe for you, and answer that question. You don't have to read them a 30-chapter book in the first week of knowing them, or the first year of knowing them, or ever. Let's just be curious about each other forever. But you can let them kind of lead the way a little bit in the questions that they ask. And if they're good friends, they're going to ask good questions, you know?
Absolutely. And I think it's about, checking in with where you're at. And I think a good friend is if you say, oh, I can't keep going. I can't keep going into Mormonism right now.
I need a minute.
I need a minute. Like a good friend is going to respect and love that honesty, But I do think people are fascinated by this culture for all of the reasons we've kind of already talked about today. I mean, it's very high control. It's very hush hush. There's not, before the internet, you knew nothing about Mormonism at all. And so I think people are very curious. It's also very trendy right now, especially with like the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and all of that. So
the Netflix specials and
yes, it's very trendy. And I think that you're going to get asked more questions. But if someone is a good friend to you, if they genuinely care about you, they're supportive of wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
Because your story is true and real and valid, and it impacted you and it shaped you. It shapes the way you show up in your relationships. And it's okay to talk about.
Yeah, and I think it's really okay to want to be understood too.
Oof.
And I think we have to just kind of recognize that in our closest relationships, you're going to want that. And so it's okay to let it come at the pace that's healthy for you. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. It's wild how much this affects in people's everyday lives.
It is. I mean, these submissions are so, these submissions are so profound. Do you want to do another one?
Sure.
You read one?
Okay, I think this one we haven't done. Number 8. I am in a place where I really want to rebuild, and I feel like I have a lot of learning to do in order to do that. I am just feeling so much fear come up. Fear of trusting any sort of beliefs. Fear of feeling tricked again. I want to learn about all the world has to offer and trust within myself that I won't so easily be led astray as the church told me I would be if I explored. Any advice on where or how to start? So I'm hearing a lot of we're programmed to not have a ton of internal authority in high control systems. The authority and the safety that we perceive is outside of ourselves. Always. That's a key factor. And so, this person is starting from scratch in many ways and, adjusting their authority dial inward to themselves instead of outward. And so it's going to be a learning curve. You're probably going to see yourself take steps to finding that safe space within yourself. It's not just going to happen overnight,
Absolutely.
And that's okay.
And that was the first thing that came up for me when you were reading it is just that fear is so valid and real. And that lack of trust and the skepticism. And again, I think those are all windows into some healing and into some inner work that, and I use the word trauma because there's just really not a better word, right? But that is the religious trauma that's coming up, the not being able to trust, the feeling fearful that is someone going to take advantage of you again, all of that is so real and to hold space for it and to dive in and to work through it. But I do love, I do think you have to start very slow. And you have to put yourself out there. And it's going to feel vulnerable and scary. And also trust that because you're also very resilient. If you have stepped away from high control religion, you are resilient. It requires resiliency to do that, period. Even if you're still struggling, even if you're still like deconstructing, right? Right. And I kind of think that, and you can correct me, or you can share if you feel differently than this, Mellissa, but like deconstruction and reconstruction are just so intertwined, because I think you're deconstructing as you're reconstructing, and then you're going to deconstruct again in like 10 years when something comes up that you've never had to like deal with, right? And so as you reconstruct, right, because you're like, where do I start? How do I explore some stuff? You're still deconstructing at the same time you're reconstructing, but also trusting that you kind of already know some red flags, right? You already know like what you didn't like in this high control group, and that can help you as you start to navigate and explore other things.
I love that. I'm hearing you talk about trusting our internal experience and trusting the wisdom that we've always had. I do not believe that any high control system can take that away. I think you've always had it from the moment you were born, and probably energetically before, because I'm a little woo-woo.
That's why I love you. That's why I love you.
Always had it, and you'll always fucking have it. And when you look back at your journey where you're like, I was such an idiot, what was I thinking? I want you to pause before you generalize and minimize yourself that way, and look at, what did I kind of like know though? What was keeping me up in the middle of the night? What was I questioning? Why did I make that shift toward this? And you're going to see that that internal compass has always been fighting for space. And a high control structure like this tries to, overcome it. But it never truly does, I don't think. I think with all of my clients, we look back and we find like when I was 8 and I was getting baptized, I didn't believe in Joseph Smith. Or I felt really weird. I just wanted my daddy to be proud of me. And I was desperate for that because he never hugged me. Like there's like so many different things that are going on inside of us besides the system. And if we reorient to that feeling, what does it feel like to be in that source grounded energy? You're going to recognize you've been there even when you were in these high control systems, and it's probably what helped you get out.
Yeah, and what helped you survive. I love that you said that, and I believe that so wholeheartedly too. That is never stripped of us. It's masked and covered up and comes out in all these different ways. But that's like the guiding premise behind the work that I do in brain spotting is I genuinely, when I'm sitting across from a client, I genuinely trust and know that their nervous system has everything already in them to take care of them. And we just need to reset the conditions. We need to create an environment where the nervous system is not in threat, is not in fight or flight, to then access those inner resources, right? But they are always with us. We are designed to do that, to survive. We're programmed to, and that's so miraculous in a lot of ways. And although maybe it felt like you were deceived and in all of that, like, again, your body has always known, and it was just genuinely working to keep you safe. And I think that's so beautiful.
I think once we get into the work of remembering what it felt like to be grounded and to be connected to ourselves in a free way, we can get to that space through different modalities. And then we can see where that trail is, it's throughout the whole journey. It just looks a little different. You're pushing up against some control and some manipulation. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And there was another question, but I think the answer our answer would be essentially the same. And it says, how can I ever trust again after being so fundamentally let down by an organization that was supposed to save me? Right. And I would invite this submission to just really take in everything we just talked about. And also too, that again, this organization created your trauma and it also gave you the remedy for your trauma. And the deconstruction of that, the unpacking of that is complex. And it takes time, and to give yourself that time and space.
It's complex, it's developmental, and it's going to take time. I promise this is going to take time. It's not, right? It's not an overnight thing. And so just know that you're not alone. Just know that this is the path, this is the journey, and we have each other. And that's why voices like mine and Ashley's and others, don't be afraid to reach out, ask questions, and connect with friends who have similar felt experience as you, and you're not alone. That's what high control systems want you to believe. I remember this one message, where will you go? Where will you go? I remember listening to this one general conference message, literally this guy saying, okay, well, where will you go then?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're right. Where will I go? I'll go right here. This is what I'm doing. But you're going to go to people whose arms are wide open and recognize that you are so strong and so resilient for the fact that you've gotten this far. How much does it take, and how strong are you for having shifted this much out of such a high control structure? Like, you are amazing, and you're perfect exactly where you are. Just take a breath. Notice where you are and let that be okay.
Absolutely.
And things are going to continue to build as you trust yourself.
I love that message, and it's so true, and it's so real. And I think you really embody that, Mellissa. That's what I love about your story. And so you guys need to go back and listen to it. But just that you did all the things, like you did all the things in the church. And then just to hear you speak about just where you're at now, and like your relationships and your friendships and the way you show up for your clients. I mean, you just model, like, there is so much more out there. There are places for you to go, and you don't have to settle for this. And I'm with you that that's what the church wants you to believe, because that's how they maintain power and control over you, right? And we have to break free of that. And I think also you, for me, really just highlighted right there the resilience piece. Like, there's so much resilience in there's so much resilience in even being able to say, I don't know if this is true. That's a resilient statement.
It's a big deal to say that.
Such a big deal. I want to do one more because of your woo-woo. Okay. So I'm like, I want your knowledge. I used to find so much meaning in life and death, but now it seems so arbitrary. We live, we die. A car accident can change anything on a random Tuesday, and then someone is just gone. How do I deal with this feeling of pointlessness?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've seen a lot of people deal with this feeling in different ways. For me, woo-woo is helpful. I like my first few years out of high control religion, I loved studying other religions. I was going to all these churches and learning all these different doctrines, like looking at how many versions of the Bible there were, and like all these other holy books, and just recognizing how beautiful is this tradition of humans finding so much meaning and depth. And just like that kind of lit me up a little bit. And that's shifted. Now I've settled into something a little different. But, there's also the ideas of existentialism and absurdism, and where she's stuck is in nihilism right now, which I think happens to people who are true believers. If you are a true believer, and then you learn that this shit is not true, you are going to find yourself in the dark for a minute, at least. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe we need to be there so that we can recognize that it's truly up to us to make today what it is. Like it truly is. And we get to be creative, and then you get to build something new. And I've had clients who are literally just like, this life is absurd and kind of cool and crazy. I'm going to do what the fuck I want and live really cool lives. That doesn't mean they lose their humanity or their values. It just means they're like, they look at the world and this life differently because they believe this is it. And that's cool. And then there's other people who have deep beliefs about past lives and future lives and interconnectedness and there's just so many ways to do it, and there's no wrong way. I have other clients who just, they hop around to different churches every few years and take what feels really good and build community, and they're really cool, dynamic, well-rounded people. But it's okay to have this dark night of the soul. I actually think it's kind of like, I'm beginning to think it's just a necessary part of this process, because I haven't seen it not happen.
Yeah.
It happened to me. It happened to me for sure.
I think that's a great perspective to share too, like that it's a part of the process in the deconstruction and the reconstruction process for sure.
Mm-hmm. If you're a true believer, yeah, right? Like,
yeah. I really like that idea too. There's no wrong ways, just different ways.
Yeah.
Have you read the book Man's Search for Meaning?
Yes, it's one of my favorites.
One of mine too. Mm-hmm. That's what's coming up for me too. I would almost recommend that book here. So Viktor Frankl was in he's a Holocaust survivor, but just like the way, I mean, I get chills every time I think about it, the way he made meaning being in a concentration camp and not knowing so many things, right? And I think it's really powerful to deal with the pointless when things feel pointless. So I'd recommend that book. I also, this is super morbid, but the only thing that is certain in life is death. Like, it is like the one thing that like is certain, and everything else is so uncertain. And yes, you don't know. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And that used to terrify me. Quite frankly, that scared me for a very, very, very long time. And I think that has roots to religion and religious trauma and all of that. But the more inner work I've done, and the more grounded and centered and woo-woo, whatever you want to call it, I am in my own being, right? The more like I just feel present, because this is I'm living for this life. I'm not living for some conditional afterlife that nobody knows anything about. And I think that can feel pointless, right? If you were a true believer and that's all you've ever known. So you have to hold space for that. You have to hold space for this part of the process, the pointless, you know?
Yeah.
But then I think it's so important to find what gives you meaning in the here and now. And it can be so simple and so silly. It can be like, I'm going to just say straight up, I love waking up in the morning and like having my cup of coffee. It is just like sacred to me. Which is, it's a cup of coffee, but it's like, I'm going to get up early. I'm going to sit on my couch. I'm going to drink my coffee. I love my cuddles that I get from my two little kids. And I know that those are temporary. They're not going to cuddle me for like this forever. But so, you know what, when I get them right now in the here and now, those are just like spiritual goodness that I am just soaking in, right? Yeah. I think this is so simple. I think spirituality can be so simple. It doesn't have to be in a church. It doesn't have to be going and taking yoga class or finding it in nature. And all of those things can give you spiritual feelings. So like I'm not discrediting discredit any of that. But I think when you're reconstructing, it is starting so simple. Starting with what you do every single day. Like, you know what? I fucking love my hot ass showers. Like, I love them.
Yeah.
I love washing my face at night. I love my face routine. You know?
Yeah. I think we have to recognize that our experience matters. And that's kind of what we're stripped of in high control systems. What you feel, what you experience doesn't matter. But if today matters, then that snuggle from your kid, like when my teenager comes out of his room and wants to hang out with me, like, the best fucking moment of my life, over and over and over again. Because it's like, this is what counts. This matters. And this is a great kind of example of how different this can be for everyone. Because Ashley and I, I can hear that we're already, like, we're different in this. Like, for me, death doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't feel so sure for me anymore. Change feels sure for me. I know we're going to physically die. I know that, but I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen after I die. But change is, for me, the only constant that there is. And so when my little youngest wants to come snuggle with me, it's exactly the same as what, it's like this deep presence of like, he is not going to want to do this forever. This is so special. Our spirits loving each other. Like, how beautiful is this? change is going to happen over and over and over again, transformation. And when we think of it that way, like a phase transition is, it's not, maybe there's like even bigger changes coming. I don't know.
Absolutely.
It's kind of cool.
And it's just being able to hold space for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And respecting and loving that everyone is different. And when we can do that and recognize that your experience is going to be different than mine, then it's like, how can you not respect and even be curious about what their day looks like, or what does that feel like for them?
Yeah. Oh, I just love you, Mellissa.
I love you too.
I'm just having this moment. I'm like, talk about a spiritual moment. But this conversation has been really special for me. And I really appreciate the work that you do and the knowledge and insight you bring to this specialty, because it is, like we've already talked about, it's super dense, but you are so well spoken on it.
Thanks, Ash. That means a lot.
You're so well versed, and you just the way you conceptualize it and talk about it, and I'm learning so much from this conversation, and your clients are really lucky to have you, and I hope you know that.
Thanks, Ash. That means so much. I feel emotional hearing that. I think with our backgrounds, like there's a lot that I have to work through internally, and I don't feel like I'm as good at my job as people or the world or whatever tells me. I hear these things from you, and I have a hard time always letting them in from people, and even clients who are like, "Thank you, Mellissa. Like I'm okay now." It's hard. It's hard for me to, and I think partly that's, it's connected to the religious trauma. It's
yeah, it's our conditioning, right? I've had that realization recently in therapy. Like, I'm constantly chasing. I'm constantly like, it's never good enough. It's never good enough. I'm never a good enough therapist. I'm never a good enough wife. I'm never a good enough mom. Like, when does it fucking end, And I right now, I'm just like, I kind of feel neutral. Like, I just kind of feel like I'm not having a high. I'm not having a low. And that's also terrifying to me.
Oh, I love that. That's the discomfort where you're going to learn something right there.
Yep.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. But that's like, we're all on this journey, and it's so hard to see our worth. So thank you for being vulnerable about that, and for coming back on this podcast. I'm like, all right, come back. You're coming back again. I'm going to give you a few months, and then I'm going to make you come back. We're going to go do a whole nother series of questions. And I didn't even get a plug. I'm going to hold it on the screen. This faith transition journal that Mellissa has and offers. I don't know if you want to give a quick spiel about it real quick before we wrap up.
It's just a really kind of positive, normalizing experience with yourself to recognize that change is healthy, and that there's all these different points of life that are going to feel disrupted, and it's just opportunities and prompts to journal about them. Honestly, it's things that we hit in therapy when you're going to see a specialized therapist with religious trauma. If you can't afford a $150 session, go grab this journal for $25, and it is something that I think is going to be helpful for you. When I run my groups, everybody in my group gets one of these just as part of the group, and we'll kind of work through it as we go as well.
Oh yeah, I love that. I'll include it in the show notes of this episode too for everyone. I just want to keep talking for hours and hours. So Mellissa, thank you for coming on. I can't wait to have you come back. Everyone, thank you so much for listening and submitting your questions. It was an honor to just read and get a little glimpse into your life, and I appreciate those submissions so very much. So
I agree. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Any final words, Mellissa? I always end the episodes with that.
I don't know. I just hope that everybody can remember to find your peace. It's a kind of a crazy time in the world right now, so take care of yourselves first as a priority.
Yes, take care of yourselves. We'll be back next week. Thank you for being a part of Sunflower Movement today. Just like sunflowers turn toward the light, may you keep leaning into growth, healing, and the spaces where you feel seen. If today's content resonates with you, please share, like, and review. It would mean the world to me.